Cari amici sportivi, welcome to the local soccer show. Stevie P here. Guys, welcome to the Milan Weekly Podcast channel where we bring you Milan Weekly Podcast on Monday. Yesterday, if you tuned into the channel, you saw Fabio, Gio, and the Grande Antonio on Milan Coast to Coast. And every two Thursdays, Stevie P graces you again and comes on any device that you're watching your podcast or listening to your podcast. And we're bringing you another great guest tonight, guys. Fantastic stuff. The local soccer show talking grassroots soccer, making sure that we spread the knowledge of these fantastic guests that we have on. It wouldn't be possible to have the local soccer show if it wasn't for our great partners and sponsors, Evangelista Sport, guys. Please check them out, 6821 Boulevard Saint Laurent, for all your soccer gear, merchandise. They have a fantastic shop in Montreal's Little Italy. Check it out. Take a walk with your family. Have a nice coffee. I know it's a little bit cold now, but the nice weather's rolling in. That means outdoor soccer starts soon. Uh, Guys, Presidente came in the clutch. We have a fantastic guest talking something that it's a hot topic. It's a very important topic. We're going to be talking women's soccer with a fantastic guest. Let's bring her in right away, Marcello. Let's go. Welcome to the show. Let's give a Milan Weekly Podcast, the local soccer show. Welcome to Amy Walsh. Amy, thank you so much for taking the time this evening.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Amy, before the show, I was talking with Marcello and I said, what do I mention about Amy? A fantastic career. She continues to be in the game. And then, Marcello just honest to me. He's like, Steve, who better to introduce herself than herself? Uh, so, for anybody who's been living under a rock, Amy, tell us a little bit about your soccer career, please.
Oh boy, you know what? It maybe would have been better to have somebody else introduce me. Um, let's see now. So I retired in 2009, so I'm a little bit removed from my international career, but I played on the U20 national team, grew up kind of playing soccer, and I grew up in St. Bruno, older brother, three younger sisters, really sporting family and really competitive upbringing, played all kinds of sports. And then I only really chose elite soccer when I was maybe 15, and I went to Brossard, and that's where I got to know Patrice Bernier and all those guys and that crew, and his wife Melissa Baril. We played together for a really long time, and that crew of girls still plays now. They're pretty incredible, still winning Canadian championships at the senior level. And then that was kind of like the moment where I thought, you know what, I can maybe do this. I didn't know what doing it meant then, because I was aware there was a Canadian national team, but I didn't think that I could make it. But then it was a pretty quick ascension through provincial teams and then U20 national team, and I got my first cap for Canada in '98, and played in the World Cup in '99 and another World Cup in 2007 and the Olympics in 2008. So a career that spanned about a decade, and I was capped 102 times. I was a captain for a few years as well with the national team, and so really fortunate to have had a great career like that, and now to find myself sort of on the still involved in the game but not on the pitch, but really as close to it as I can get and still as passionate as ever about it.
That's amazing. I could officially say you're our most decorated guest. So we'll give you that honor.
Take that, Grant Needham.
Yeah. We'll give you that honor, and we're gonna put you right on top of Grant. You just surpassed him.
Wait a minute. Let's not repeat that phrase because that's gonna get me in trouble.
Amy, we talked about your stellar professional and international career. What about, after, how did you get involved in youth soccer? How did you get the ball rolling to this fantastic career? Because this is where we want to hit the grassroots level. How did you start getting involved how did you start playing soccer? Who introduced you to the sport?
You mean not now how I'm involved in
No,
grassroots, but
when you
when
were
I
little,
myself
Amy.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, in St. Bruno, again, going back there, I think I probably started around age 6. And it was always a great association. I have really positive memories of the people who were in charge. It seemed informal. I'm sure it was very well organized, but it just was really pleasant to be involved in. And I don't think we were enough that we were split. It was boys and girls together, recreational, probably just once a week. And then, but I have pretty kind of defined memories of the first time that they kind of made a select girls team. And I have a 13-year-old boy and I have twin 8-year-olds. And so I was probably in between. I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old and being so nervous, but I was, one of the best players, but I really, really wanted to make the team and wasn't really sure if I was going to. And trying to impress the coach by like sprinting for the ball when it would go out for a throw and stuff like that. And I would sometimes be a goalkeeper as well. So I'd love to score goals, play up front. And then it was before shin pads were mandated. So I would wear no shin guards and knee pads because that helped me in goal whenever I would go in. But then I got bored of that pretty quick and I wanted to be where the action was. But really great memories. And my dad coached my sisters. So I have Sarah and Cindy. Cindy actually played on the national team for 2 years. She's a fabulous player. Actually, all my siblings are amazing athletes. They all played soccer at a really high level. And my brother, while he never participated in elite sports, he's one of those annoying people who's really good at anything that they pick up and try. So we're always trying to always trying to compete with that. But yeah, so we were always we had a huge station wagon. We only had one car that had like one of those seats in the back that faced the opposite way. We called it the backety back. And so we could pile all kinds of kids in our cars to take them to various tournaments. And my mom was always the team manager. And like I said, my dad coached my twin sisters. So Cindy and Sarah are 2 years younger than me. And then Bonnie is 2 years younger than they are. So my youngest sister, Bonnie, was always the most cerebral of athletes because she was forever watching sports. If she wasn't watching my older brother play, she was watching me play, and then her older sisters play, and Cindy and Sarah, and then she would finally play her game. So her head was always on a swivel, and she always knew how to find those spaces on the pitch. But we were a real sporting family, and soccer was really a love of everybody in my family as well.
Amazing. Any other sports, Amy? We know now it's a big hot
Yeah.
topic. Multi sport kids. We see a lot of hockey, soccer. You just explained a fantastically athletic family. Was
Mm-hmm.
it only soccer, or was it other sports as well?
No, it was everything. And it was, pre this age of specialization. So it wasn't like we were choosing to do that. It was just, my parents, well, there wasn't a ton of money floating around, but, my parents always got that deal. So whether it was soccer or my brother played hockey, and then all four sisters, we all played ringette. So through the city, there was always a deal where like my brother was full price, and then my mom got like, 10% off for me. And then Sarah was maybe half off, and then Cindy and Bonnie were free. So we were able they were able, with 5 kids, that's the only way we were really able to participate. And in fact, if, things like sport études and specialization were available, if it was pay to play, which some places still are, and we'll dive into that a little bit later, I don't know if it would have been accessible to us. So we played a lot of different sports. I think because my parents saw that we enjoyed it and we made good friends, and it was a great way for energetic kids to use up their energy. So it was soccer was by far, I would say, the most popular, but I played basketball, I played volleyball, I ran track, I even did barrel jumping and speed
Wow.
skating. Like, oh yeah. And we were kids that also, like, my dad's family has a cottage up north, and so we were always, cross country skiing, and we did downhill skiing and snowboarding when we were older. So we did all kinds of stuff, and
Amy, you
we
gotta stop because I'm tired for you guys. Like, I'm out
no,
of
but I
breath.
mean that we just loved it. And actually, my brother-in-law told me when I was pregnant with my first, he said, you're gonna have an artist, or you're gonna have a kid which would have been fabulous. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You support your kids no matter what. But that didn't happen. I have very sporty kids. The three of them, they're all very different, but they all are super competitive indoor sports. So that's great. And I see a lot of kind of my upbringing and the way that they interact with one another, whether they're shooting hoops or they're on the soccer pitch or they're playing hockey and the rollerblades outside the house. It makes me think of my childhood growing up with my siblings.
That's amazing. And after let's say club level and the success you had, what was your next step? Was it something that interested you that you wanted to play a professional? Was there an opportunity for you to play professional? What were you looking at as a next goal after club soccer?
Well, I alluded to it, I think, when I was just talking about my experience in club, that I think I was a teenager when I read in the local newspaper about Connie and Maureen Kant and their two sisters from it, just coincidentally, my hometown of St. Bruno. And they played on Canada's first iteration of a Canadian women's national soccer team. And so I read, and it was probably, like a paragraph, two paragraphs maximum, like this skinny little blurb in the local paper. And I went, hang on a minute, like, what's this again? They're playing for Canada? This is a thing? Like, you can, like, it blew my mind, because up until that point, my role model or role models were my older brother. He's 5 years older than me, who I just had stars in my eyes, and I just wanted to hang around and do every single thing with him. And so I got stuck in goal for like the street hockey games, and I did anything I could just to play sports with him and be around him and his friends, which probably helped me. And like Wayne Gretzky, those were, and like posters on my wall were of male athletes, because there just weren't any other female athletes. I remember I had a Reebok poster, and it was this is when I was in high school, of like a really strong, really muscled woman, and it said in Latin, a sound mind and a sound body. And it was like I had it up my entire high school, like, just, and it was something that almost like a touchstone, because it was like a female model, because it didn't really exist. And now this new generation, they have like a professional career to aspire to. So I did play professionally a little bit in the WUSA. I was drafted out of Nebraska to play in that league. I only played one season. I split time in Atlanta and in the Bay Area, and it was a great experience. But I every other league I played in was kind of semi-pro or thereabouts, and it wasn't really professional in its environment. So I think this new generation has a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, the opportunities are far and beyond, and I'll age myself as well than anything that I would even think about. If you put me back at 15 or 13 years old, thinking of what soccer has become now in this
Yeah.
country, I would have said you're crazy. I would have
Hmm.
never believed it, and especially how technology has changed for the good or for the worse, however
Yeah,
you
it's
wanna.
changed things, that's for
Yeah, it's
sure.
changed things completely. You touched on something and you said, the generation now. So let's go to the meat of it, which is basically the local soccer show. Let's talk about grassroots soccer, and especially fundamentally for girls. Uh, when I was growing up, I'll be honest with you, Amy, I didn't even, in my club, I didn't even know that they had a girls team. Uh,
What was your club?
in RDP,
An
CSRDP.
RDP. Okay.
I didn't even know if they had a club. As we got older, yes, things changed. But when I first started playing, I think about it all the time. Because I have a daughter who, again, she chose that sports is not for her. She's a girly girl. She loves that, and that's amazing. But I would think back, if she would, when I played, did we even have a team at that age, at 6 or 7 years old? I can't even remember that.
Mhm.
As I got older, yes, we did notice that there was a girls team. But how has grassroots soccer changed from back when you played and to where we are today in these clubs?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience now being involved as a coach. So I live out in Saint Hilaire. So our association is CSVR, Vallée du Richelieu. And so my oldest actually never played soccer. Well, he played for a season when he was U4, but twins were born a few weeks before, and he was like this only child, and all of a sudden we brought these two babies home, and he's like, "What have you done to
Surprise.
my life? You've ruined my life, and now you want me to go play this sport with all these people yelling at me?" Like, he thought the parents that were there, like, encouraging, he was just like, "I'm out. Like, I don't like this at all." So he never played soccer, and people are like, "Oh my god, that's so sad." I'm like, "No, it's
No.
it's not it's not sad. It's okay." Like, he still plays and he loves it and he watches it. We play at home and just mess about, but he doesn't play it kind of in an organized fashion. But my twins adore the sport. And because I guess of me and my past, like, my club wants me to be a coach, and I also want to be a coach as well. My sister Bonnie has a daughter who's the same age as my twins. So we have my niece and my daughter in the U8 boys. Actually, this coming year they'll be U9. So up until this point, it's not been an issue. And now, but the club, I remember when I signed them up when they were U4, they already wanted them to be split. And I said, well, I wrote the club and because I have a very difficult time keeping my opinions to myself. I
Good.
said,
Me
listen,
too.
I
We're
would,
gonna be best of friends.
I said, listen, just to manage schedules. And obviously, because I want to coach them, I want to see their development and I want to kind of be not in charge of it, but I want to have a hand in it. I would like them to be together. And they said, of course, that's no problem. I said, but just out of curiosity, why are you splitting the groups up at U4? And I actually read a really great article in La Presse last month, and it was all about mixité and all about, what are there benefits to doing that, or the opposite of that would be harm, but you're not harming the kids by doing it, but there's also tons of benefits keeping them together, I think. Anecdotally, obviously, I'm not pointing to any studies, but the article did point to studies to say that it helps both genders to keep them together in terms of their development. And there are things too that can detract from that. But anyway, so this summer I'm going to have to make some decisions or have a talk with our technical director because he wants them to split. But anyway, we'll see. But that's one of the things that I don't remember, and maybe that was a function of just the time where they just thought, okay, like, we only have X number of kids who have signed up, so we're going to throw them all together, and it was a function of numbers, and it was just easier to run it. And now that there are more kids who are signing up, which is great, it's our most practiced sport, not only in our province but in Canada. They, I guess, have the luxury, for lack of a better expression, to split up the genders. But I think that's, I don't know if I go as far to say that that's a mistake, but I think that you can help the development, I think, of everybody, boys and girls, by keeping them together, I think.
Yeah. And I see nothing wrong with that. And also, just as an example, just 2 weekends ago, we joined the tournament, and it was clear as day. If you have mixed teams, it's fine. So if it's good for a tournament, why can't it be good for a season? And I agree with you. 4 or 5, I think maybe at a certain age they need to split, maybe,
Sure.
but maybe that's something to look on, and I hope that Soccer Quebec, Soccer Canada would take someone like yours opinion. Maybe not Steve Polillo, but I think you have a bit more weight in stuff like that, and I think the province and the country need to start looking at people that have dedicated their time and life to soccer and getting their input, because it's important what you guys think. You have a lot of experience, and I'm gonna say it's something again. Like, I have the same problem as you. I can't hold my opinions back. I find that as a country and as a province, we kind of we're afraid of people that might know more than us sometimes, and it's a bit sad because we lose that experience, that different way of thinking that someone else might have, because we want to stay the traditional way, or maybe the easy way. The easy way, like you said, is to split, right? Especially if you have the numbers. But maybe experimentally, and again, like you said, maybe not with studies, but there are studies.
Hmm.
Maybe try mixed.
Yep.
I have this feeling, and I've played for a long time. never at a very high level. And now I'm coaching. And like yourself, I want to be part of this journey. Sometimes I scratch my head and I ask myself why I want to be part of the journey. Either I want to torture myself, but uh, it is a journey, right? And it's
Hmm.
nice as parents. I see where you want to keep them together because you want to see their development, and that's what makes me happy. Eh, and again, I like you. I have a son, Gianfranco, who plays U9. Is he gonna be the best player? I have no idea, Amy. I'll be very honest with you. But to see him laugh and have fun with his friends and enjoy the game and and also be accountable and responsible in the game.
Hmm.
I think that's a bit something that we're lacking too. That when I was growing up, you were accountable and you were responsible. I made a mistake. Someone told me that I made a mistake. They didn't sugarcoat it. Now,
Hmm.
my opinion now is that we're sugarcoating things too much in at the grassroots roots level. We can't tell them that they made a mistake. No, no, no. You can tell them that they made a mistake. Just how you tell them needs to change a bit. What do you
Yeah,
think
and it
about that? Do you think that's a huge difference? Are we doing them a disservice? That's a very
yes,
long-winded question, but are we doing these kids a disservice by making everything so vanilla, making everything so nice? It's not because the
yes.
world is not nice.
No, because then you're setting them up for failure later on. You're not gonna make every team. You're not gonna get every job. You're not going to win at everything in life. So you have to be equipped to deal with challenges and obstacles and be able to navigate that and negotiate that in your life. And so if you're shielded from that at home, in sport, in school, then we're not creating not necessarily a responsible next generation, but we're not equipping the next generation to be able to just deal with life. And that for me is the great, like, sport's a great teacher, whether it's soccer or any of the other sports I mentioned earlier. Like, that gives you the wherewithal to not only learn about yourself, but it gives you the wherewithal to go out in the world and not, I mean, maybe succeed, but it gives you the wherewithal to understand yourself and to maybe understand other people better. And you're talking about your son and, like, seeing him laugh and have fun. It teaches you about connecting with others, about how to engage with people, about how to be respectful. And that's something that I espouse as a coach, and my sister as well, that we teach the kids that when we're talking, they're listening with their whole bodies. They're not moving, they're not swiveling, they're not sitting on the ball. We give them a chance to move and then they listen and then we scatter. And then when they're doing it, they're working hard and they're putting in their 100%. And that's something that I talk to my kids about all the time. The non negotiable is, I don't care if you win or lose, but if you haven't given your best on the day, then, we don't go back to the next game. And that's for you to discern, not for me to decide. If you're floating around out there and we know that you can do better, then there's a problem, because we don't care about how many goals, we don't care about assists, we don't care about the win or loss at all. But it has to be your very best effort, and that, I think, is a great teacher in life.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy we're on the same page. It makes me feel so great that I don't feel like I'm crazy. So I'm gonna have to say this. This is he's gonna kill me for it. So whenever my son finds this video and listens to this part, he's
Oh
like,
boy.
could you tell me why you told Amy Walsh this story? So what happened and what I've been seeing is the different emotions from the different kids, right? So my
Yeah.
kid, obviously, I'm watching and seeing what he's doing, but I like the psychology part of the game, right? And especially at this young age, at 9 years old, you see some that are so nervous before the game that they're crying.
Mm.
You see some that don't understand that, like we just spoke about, you will lose. Sometimes you're gonna lose, sometimes you're gonna win, and they're crying after the game. I never really saw anybody until my son did it who was crying in the game.
Oh.
And he's crying in the game because he's angry. He's angry because he wants to win. but let's say a goal will go in, and and we know now we have the luxury of playing on turf, and you have those fantastic little black pellets that I'm pretty sure
Oh,
you find all over your house and in
yep.
your washing machine or dryer. And I turned around, Amy, and I looked at it, and he looked like he was he has long hair, Gianfranco, and he looked like he came out of a Predator movie. Like he was with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had black paint on his cheek, and I saw this, and I took him aside. I said, Gianfranco, why are you crying, Daddy? And he's like, Daddy, I know we could win this game. I know. I said, I know, Gianfranco, but you have to learn how to manage your emotions. You can't be crying in the middle of the game. Are you having fun? Yes. I said, but why are you crying then? He's like, because I know we could win. So I said,
Oh,
Gianfranco, wipe out the tears, take a breather, and then go back in and try to win this game. I can't tell you more than that. But it was a. I wish I had a GoPro because I would have him as the predator. So I'm seeing. Do you see the emotional change between when we were young? I don't remember crying when I was young.
yeah, I don't know.
I do you remember when you were playing at the grassroots level ever crying? Maybe crying when I'm losing. I never cried in the game.
No, me neither, but I used to get I mean, this is taking us out of the grassroots, and I was a little bit older, but this is a very telling anecdote for just my personality when I'm playing. So in CEGEP, one of my best friends, I knew the family, but we'd hung out, but I'd never been over to her house. And then her dad was around, and she's like, "Dad, this is Amy," and he's like, "Oh, I recognize that name. And do your parents live over there?" Yeah. He said, "Oh, and you play soccer?" And I said, "Yeah, I play with Marion on the soccer team." And he was like, "No, I think that's a different Amy. Is there another Amy on the team?" I said, "No, no, that's me. I'm the only Amy on the team." And my personality was so different on the pitch as compared to how he knew me off the pitch, because he knew me fairly well, that I was actually physically unrecognizable to him.
Two different people. He thought you were two different people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we'll chalk that up maybe to her dad a little bit, but I mean, there's some truth in that, but that's also sort of distilled down to mini Amy, where I was very, very intense and very, very competitive. So I can't tell you that I would end up crying like Gianfranco, but I would feel like very intense emotions, and if like things weren't in my control, and I would get very, very angry. And my daughter actually, that story made me think of my daughter, because I tell her that it's her superpower, that she's very emotional, that she feels everything, for good and for better, for worse, like 150%, right? And so that's a wonderful thing, but it's also a lot to manage as a parent, but it's also a lot for her to manage, right? So that's another way that sports is important, is it helps to channel that. And so what I tell her, and this isn't advice, this is just what we do. So I don't know if it would work with Gianfranco, but I just tell her to acknowledge it, to recognize it, to try to name it. What are you feeling? And sometimes you can't name what it is, but you can name how it feels in your body. And then just doing that is helpful to kind of move past it. That you're not trying to brush it aside, but it's you acknowledge it, and then you just move on to the next thing. And it doesn't always work, but it can be helpful. And sometimes applying it into your sport can be useful. What did
Yeah.
like follow up on your story though, because I'm curious. So after you had your chat with him, you sent him back out on the pitch. How did he respond?
He went back to the original Gianfranco. Gianfranco is probably very similar to your daughter. It's just pure energy, and he loves the chaos. He's 9 and is not afraid of a tackle. He's
Which
9
is a
and
great thing.
yeah, which is fantastic, and I love it for that. Right? He needs to work on being a soccer player, but he loves the.
But he's 9. He's got lots of time for
Yeah,
that.
he has a lot of time for that. So no pressure for me, that's for sure. But I enjoy it because he likes to play the game, and he understands that it's not to injure, but it's aggression,
It's
and
not to
it's
injure.
yeah, it's not, he knows he knows it's not to injure, but it's all or nothing for Gianfranco. If he's
Yeah.
on the field, he's gonna give it his all. He leaves everything out there,
Hmm.
and I'm happy for that, because that's one of the goals for me to have him play sports, is to understand that when you're doing something and you have a responsibility, not only for yourself, but the parents put the time, your teammates put the time.
Hmm.
You have to be responsible in where you're playing, and making sure that you give your all for your teammates. And
Yeah.
I know, and people appreciate that, and I like that. And it, again, the follow up to that is he went and he imposed himself and played again. He calmed himself down and finished the game, and had to play. And again, the result didn't. We don't care about the result, but
Hmm.
they left it out there. It's almost like his teammates felt it, and they gave their all, and the kids played a fantastic tournament, and lost a nail biter at the end, and won by a goal in the last minute, or came back to tie. These are the feelings that I would like them to feel,
Hmm.
because hey, 7-0, 9-0 doesn't do us anything.
No.
It's Those are the games that I don't want to even watch them. I'd
Hmm.
rather they lose 3-2 and understand that they were still in the game, or come back from 2-0 down and tie the game and have that feeling. And then as
Hmm.
they get older, they move on. So uh, we talked about pressure, and this is something that I would like to pick your brain about. Back, your family, like you said, very athletic. Your dad was involved in the coaching. Do you think it's the same type of pressure, if your dad put any pressure on you, with today, and what the parents do or do not put in terms of pressure on their kids? Is it the same pressure, do you think?
No, I think it's different. It's a different kind of pressure. I think it's, the classic stereotypical parents living vicariously through their kids. I think there's always a bad apple or a couple, no matter what sport you're talking about. But for me personally, my parents didn't put any pressure on us at all. It was very much just, the same thing that I try to impart to my kids, is about kind of respect and accountability to yourself and to others. But it was very much unspoken, unsaid. Like if we were misbehaved, or the classic, what drives me crazy, my kids play hockey too, is the kids in the game, they miss a shot and there's the stick slam on the ice, or at the end of the game, like swinging a stick and hitting the boards or anything like it drives me absolutely bananas. Like anything like that at that age should be completely nipped in the bud, so that when they get, to be teenagers and older, it's not even a thought, because it's been kind of knocked out of them early on, just as a matter of respect. So if my parents ever saw any sort of insolent behavior, like childishness, um, anything that could be deemed like disrespect towards teammates, referees, coaches, it was, we were pulled in line pretty quick. But pressure to perform or to reach a certain level, never. It was just very much, if, we expressed a willingness to do something, then they were all in for their support.
Yeah, I could totally agree with that. Not that my father or mom did not want to come to the game. Sometimes just it was the times. It's just impossible for them to come. But when
Yeah.
they would come, they would sit. And again, for people who know my parents, I have a brother who's 20 years older than me. Imagine
20
we have
years.
a
Wow.
20-year age gap. So when Stevie P came along, we reintroduced him into the world of diapers and so on and so forth. So I made them start all over. They were finished with the soccer. They were finished with the hockey, and then it started all over again in a different time, in a different decade.
They
So
got a dress rehearsal of sorts.
they kind of got a dress rehearsal,
Yeah.
exactly, and they were cool as cucumbers. My dad would, have a little spurt at what he thought the ref was
Yeah.
doing or not doing, but always under control. Let's get to structure versus non-structure. So the new Canadian reform with the CDC, It's a hot button topic. I would love to have your opinion, especially for someone who's played. Um, and we can talk about what you like and what you don't like. I'm really curious, and again, you're coaching your kids, like you said, the CDC. If you can tell me something that you like about it and something that you dislike about it.
Well, I mean, again, I don't claim to be an expert on it, but my only experience is, I guess knowing about it and the reforms that came through, and then my kids up until this point. So, like I said, they'll be U9 this year. Up until this point, because I think this year they'll start to play a few kind of competitive tournaments, which is again the sticking point for why they want to split up my twins, but we'll see where that ends up. But I
I
think
have a
so.
feeling you're gonna win, Amy.
I don't know, but I'm certainly not gonna lie down easy on this one. But no, it's been good. There's been challenges because um, when you're coaching, even at that age group, there are kids who are more attentive than others, and it has nothing to do with their ability, but oftentimes they are linked. The kids that are willing to pay attention are the kids who usually want to improve, who have an understanding and are seeking to have an understanding. And you don't want to push the other kids to the side, the kids who, want to play with the little rubber bits in the turf, and the kids that are waving to mom and dad over on the side, or the kids who are misbehaving. And again, that's not unique to one group or the other. You have kids who are more well behaved and kids who are not. But when those groups aren't split up, then it's more of a challenge as a coach to even teach basic skills at that age. So I would say that's one of the challenges. But I think one of the good things about it is that, again, to go back to it as like a not a teaching moment, because I hate that expression, but in order for the kids to learn from it, which is what they're doing, playing sports, they're learning about themselves, they're learning about their teammates, is it maybe gives them a little bit more empathy. That, like my daughter, again, to go back to her, and I hope she doesn't watch this, because she won't, but you pair the kids off, and it doesn't often happen in training when we're working a technical skill and they're paired off, right? But occasionally they are. And if there's a kid who's messing around and this kid happens to be with my daughter, she no time for it at all. So in that case, it does work to put kids, the appropriate skill level with the appropriate skill level, so that that impatience, that energy, that emotion is maybe kept a little bit more in check. And as a coach, it assures that your practice is well run and the drills are work a little bit better. Those are the only things that really come to mind. I don't know what you think about it.
And you know what? To be very honest with you, Amy, I'm confused because with I'm lucky. I get to talk to great people like yourself. The multiple TDs that we've had, technical directors that we have on this show. Through this, they've become a great, almost like my own little personal coaching dictionary or
Great
encyclopedia.
resource.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or so I ask a lot of questions, and they always have time for me. And I think it's a very confusing point because some people say no, you don't have to split them by a skill level. They have to all be mixed because they have to
Mhm.
all have the same service. Then it's a very slight difference, but it's a huge difference at the same time. Some people have told me you can't split them by skill level because the CDC says that you have to give the same service. So even if you split them by skill level, you're still technically giving them the same service. So it's a very slight difference to the way it's worded, but it makes a huge difference, like you said. Like, so
Because it's the
what do we do?
interpretation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What do we do? Are we splitting them by skill level? Or are we not splitting them by skill level? Some people will say yes, you have to, and some people will say no. And I too, going starting with this team at U9, and as early, with Gianfranco at U4, but never seeing any of this. I agree with you. Some people, some kids, they just have trouble focusing, and I have one. And this is again, it's something that I'm not shy about saying, and Gianfranco is ADHD. I know that he has trouble focusing, but that's my son. I'm
Mhm.
lucky that I'm on the field and I know that he has trouble focusing. The other ones, I don't know. I'm not a professional, but the focus problem is a huge problem for the coaches and the technical staff, because, like you said, some could become, and it's not their fault, but some become drill killers. Some they will,
Yes.
and with the CDC, because we're moving them around so fast, and there's the famous game station. Well, if someone is not paying attention for X amount of time, you're losing that X amount of time, and you're never going to get it back in that hour.
Mhm.
That's what I find the frustrating part about that. But we have to find some sort of medium, uh,
Mhm.
to be able to give the same service, but the same quality of service, right? Not because we're splitting them that we treat one group different than the other. The service has to be the service.
Mhm.
But again, we talked about being accountable and responsible, even in practice. As a coach, I think I'm more harsh on the kids in practice than I am at the game, just because there's so much more to lose and so little time to move them around in their different stations. So that's the way I see it. And one aspect of the CDC that I wish that they would come to, and I've said it every single time I'm on this show, I would like them to introduce some sort of responsibility of, I'm not saying tactics, I'm not saying pressing schemes, I'm not saying formation, but responsibility. If you're here, this is your job. You will play here, you will start at right back, you will play right forward, you will play center forward, you can even play
Mhm.
nets. But when you're at right back, this is your responsibility. Because if we introduce that a little bit at a time, I think it's beneficial to them. Now, some people tell me, Steve, you're crazy. Some people say, hey, Steve, you understand. What do you think about introducing a little bit of, again, please don't get me wrong, Amy. I don't want to take out a board and uh, start start using the magic marker on where they're going to be going on the
Yeah.
field, but just some responsibility. Because when we coach, and you'll see when your twins start playing competitive games, that lack of understanding what they're doing on the field will change the result of the game, no matter the talent level.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think you introduced that a little bit earlier just so that they can start to get a grasp of, as you say, the different demands of each role and the responsibilities inherent to each position, and the relationships they have to different people on the field and how they can maybe build the play. I think at its basis, that's a great idea. I think the caveat or the potential wrinkle or issue with that is that in the wrong hands, you get a coach who's saying, well, you're the bigger kid, you're not that quick. I'm going to stick you in goal, and he's going to keep him there the whole season, or when they have these games, that's where that kid goes. Or same thing for your defenders. And then you have the quicker, faster, more skillful kids will always be your perennial attackers. Like the classic kind of pigeonholed positions, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be somebody who's going to try to work it in their favor, and sort of abuse of the system in a way. So I think that's the only thing that you'd have to be aware of, because there's always that person who's going to not be in it for the development of the kids. They're going to be in it just to win the game on that Saturday morning.
Yeah. I agree. Unfortunately, we can't control everybody, and there will be uh, that one. It's all
Yeah.
there's always some. I can't believe we're already 45 minutes in. I have so much to
I
talk to you
know.
about.
That's such a nice
I
time chatting with you.
apologize. This is what gets me excited, and I love talking soccer, especially with with great guests like yourself who give us the time. So again, thank you.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
let's go to developing the development path, right? So we were talking about CDC, good and bad. Describe to us the typical path, of a player in reaching a certain age, turning pro. Uh, give us the little rundown of what should they be looking for. What do you recommend as someone who's gone through it, and now with a little bit more avenues to explore.
Yeah, well, I would say again to circle back to my upbringing and how I was fortunate enough to have that multi-sport approach. I think now in the age of specialization, it's so important that kids are doing different things. So, hobbies, but also physical activity. It doesn't necessarily have to be an organized sport, but it's important, I think, that their bodies, but also their minds, physical and mental, but that they're exposed to different sports. That is what really, for me, I think, set the stage for me to have an international career was that I was a point guard in basketball, that I was a good skater, and I did that during the wintertime. I didn't play soccer all year round. I did eventually, but when I was younger, I did not. Um, so I think you need to seek out a little bit more balance now in this day and age. And actually, but talking about pathways like Quebec, I think we're in a really unique culture and position to create something really interesting, especially on the women's side, which is what I'm trying to do with CF Montreal. So, um, you know, national team coaches would say to me, and at different ones at different times during my career. So as long ago as 20 years ago, and as recently as I retired, and even in recent times, because our talent pool here is so deep and so rich. And they say, well, what happens to all the Quebec girls? Why do they come up through the youth system and then we never see them again? And when I was with the national team, I think at most one time, and maybe this was a camp, this is maybe not an international tournament, we were maybe five girls from Quebec, but routinely probably only two or three. And that to me wasn't truly representative of the talent that we have in our province. So I think we're doing a disservice to the current generation that we're not giving them an opportunity to develop at home. There's no platform for girls after university for them to continue playing. And so with the Women's Pro League coming in 2025, that's going to fill that void. And then hopefully the League Ones and the PLSQ will form like that a second tier division, so that creates a platform for those women, so that when they're done their college careers, whether it's the US based or Canada based, they can continue to play. But an academy here would give these young women not only a springboard potentially to a pro career, whether it's here or in Europe or elsewhere, but it gives them a chance to do it at home. And that you're removing barriers for them in order to compete at a high level. So I think I know I pivoted there a little bit on your question, but I think it's really important, and we're at a really pivotal time in Canadian soccer kind of history and the landscape that exists now, that I can't believe that we haven't got anything in place yet. It's ridiculous. So like we
we're
really
late to we're
work
late
on
to the
this.
party.
We're
we're
so late to
we're
the
so
party.
late to the party, and again, that's one thing, that I knew we were going to go to the women's pro league, and I'm very happy that you brought it up, because more and more now we're starting to see, the leagues in France, the leagues in England. The women have somewhere to go and somewhere to play, and play very well. They have their Champions Leagues.
Yeah.
This what I don't understand about Canada is that the women's team. Again, let's be honest, has been much more successful than the men's team.
Hmm.
Like, it's not even comparable.
You're
This,
speaking the truth.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm, that this is what it is, guys. They've been so much more successful. I
Hmm.
don't understand. If it would have been vice versa, we
Oh,
would have had academies, we would have had this, and we would have
of
that.
course.
I- you know, And that's the frustrating part. And I'm not being a homer because I'm on the show with yourself. I've said this before. I don't understand, even at the local, not the local level. I'm saying at the professional level,
Mhm.
why it took so long for them to introduce an academy, let's say for the Impact or for another MLS team. And I'm not going to sit here to pretend to say that I know that the rest of the MLS teams have an academy for the women's team. I don't know. I don't know. But if I put myself in their shoes, women's soccer in Canada has been so much better. I have local talent and they have nowhere to go. And then you just turn around and you look across the ocean. You have many leagues where you're forcing these kids to leave if they want to play soccer after university. Why not try to? It's also a business move, Amy.
Yeah.
They missed that boat. They missed a boat to like we've been trans. We see the transfers of Kone. We see the
Mhm.
transfers, the multiple transfers that CF Montreal has done. That could have been done with women's soccer a long time ago.
Mhm.
If you were building this talent and you were collecting this talent out once they pass grassroots level, you could be in control of these transfers or build your team to play somewhere. I know we didn't have anywhere to play, and that's again on Canada and why we don't have a pro league. But they had an academy. They could give you some time in the academy, and then they can. I'm gonna sound really barbaric, but they'll be worth something to a club that's willing to pay for that transfer, right?
Mhm.
Did the CF Montreal miss the boat on that? Now I don't want to put you in a bad situation, but
Mhm.
did they miss the boat on creating an academy for women's soccer?
Well, I think overall, I think Canada, the Whitecaps have continued to champion women, and they have their academy there. But it's largely thanks to private investors. Um, so yeah, it's a mystery to me why MLSE and TFC don't have an academy themselves. But I mean, yes, I think that CF Montreal should have probably, in the days of the Impact, should have had an academy. But that ship has sailed, and now finally they're saying that this is something worth prioritizing, and I'm trying to get something going and leading the charge there. So better late than never,
Yes, yes. Let's
I
look
guess.
forward.
But we are
We're
100%
here again. We're here.
party.
Like I said, I don't want to put you in a bad spot. We're just here to say what it is. Unfortunately, you're gonna learn from those mistakes, and we're gonna look forward, right? And now we're looking forward to that. So
Yep, and then on the horizon is the pro league. So this can
yeah,
be a direct pipeline, for these young women in Quebec to really, have that in their sights as a future,
yeah.
that as a real viable future. And if it's not, to pro, then they can, play in other leagues, but there will be platforms for them to continue to develop because a young woman, and just like a young man doesn't, you don't stop developing and improving just because you're done university. You know, your
Yeah.
development doesn't stop at 22. I played my best soccer after that age, and as well as everybody worldwide. Like that's not your peak, that's not your prime. But unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure here in Canada. We don't have the leagues created. We have very little stadiums. We don't have the leagues, more importantly, or
Yeah.
places for these women to play. So we give them that, and we give them a place to develop where they can stay here and study, and language isn't a barrier, and then they can really flourish and maybe, do whatever they want, but continue to study and play, or maybe one day play pro. And that's an option now for this generation.
Amy, I have to go here. I have to go here, and we're talking about Canada, and it's something that we're not gonna hide from it. There's obviously a dispute.
Hmm.
I've been watching. I've been trying to follow it and understand. Uh, I don't like to comment on things like this because depending on who's reporting on it, sometimes they kind of like make it only about money, and I don't think this is only about money. I think there's maybe something a little bit deeper than money, and just unfortunately the society that we're in now just thinks about money.
Mhm.
But what could you tell us about this dispute between, Soccer Canada and the women's national team? Just to, to get it from someone who I'm pretty sure you follow it. It's close to your heart. And I won't pretend to know exactly what the issue is, but I, I have trouble. I have trouble digesting that it's just what the media is saying, that it because they only talk about money, and that's what's
Mhm.
frustrating. But I know there's more than that.
No, it's not just about equal pay. You've got that, for sure. It's about the foundational issue of gender equity and how this team is treated and continues to be treated. So they're like it's really left me rattled because as a player rep myself, when I was a member of the team, these are sort of foundational systemic issues that we were wrestling with 20 years ago. And the landscape has changed, has become more professional, but at its root, these women are treated like second class citizens. So their demands, and they tried to strike, they were forced back on the job. They played the She Believes Cup and only had one win and really one good performance against Brazil. They lost 3-0 to Japan yesterday, and
Yeah.
in a very poor performance. Lost to the US in the opening game, but obviously solidarity all across the world with
That
the
was
fellow
beautiful
women's
to see
national.
the circle
Yep.
in the middle of the pitch. That was really nice to see.
Yeah, because the US women's team themselves, they fought for 6 years to get that landmark CBA where they will now get equal pay for equal work. So
That's
the
another country, Amy. The women's team has been by far hugely more successful than the men. Like I
Yes,
can't
yeah,
figure this out.
absolutely. And yet the disparity in FIFA monies, like if you compare this World Cup in Qatar that's just finished and then the Women's World Cup that's coming up this summer in Australia and New Zealand, there's almost a $400 million difference in the purses and the amount of prize money that's available to players. So what this historic landmark deal does in the US is when the US men got knocked out in the round of 16 in Qatar, the prize money that was given to the men that was then dispersed equally between the men's team and the women's team, the women made more money from the men being eliminated in the round of 16 than they made as World Cup winners in 2019.
That's crazy,
So
ludicrous.
that's one tiny piece, but FIFA is an issue, but you have to get your federation right. So the US Soccer Federation has gotten that right. Canada obviously lags behind. So to get back to the root of it, they just want equal treatment. They want equity. So in the way that the amount of games that they get, amount of fixtures, amount of friendlies, the amount of resources, like the support staff, the way that they travel, their accommodations, everything that surrounds the team, they want exactly what the men got in their World Cup year, and they want the CSA or Canada Soccer to open the books. So they want transparency in the way that the organization, as a national sports organization, a nonprofit, how it's governed, because there are systemic and foundational issues with that, and it basically needs to be torn down because it's the same issues. And there's been stop gaps put in place, and now 5 months from their World Cup, they're saying, "Well, we have no more money," and it doesn't make any sense. Like where is all the money?
Where is all the money? That, and again, you see, it's not. You see, they make it about the money. They make it about the money, but there's not enough people like yourself asking, where is the money? Because that's
Mhm.
the big question. And everybody throws around this nonprofit, and we see it from grassroots all the way up. You're a nonprofit. You're a nonprofit. You're a nonprofit. Nonprofit is, yes, it is what it is, but the people running the nonprofit have to have the accountability and the responsibility to manage that money correctly.
Mhm.
And you cannot say, this is what shocked me is that when I saw that and I read that where they said they have no more money. Well, your women's team has been making the World Cup and competing in the World Cup very successfully. Your participation levels in this sports from the grassroots all the way up is at an ultimate high, higher than
Yep.
you're not.
Never
We're
been
gonna
higher.
say it. The national sport is hockey, but soccer, in terms of participation, blows it out of the water.
Yep.
There's the fees, and being involved in the club and doing my research, and there's fees that get bumped up even from a U9 subscription. There's money that goes to Soccer Canada, so you're
Hmm.
collecting that. I'm not getting too much in return besides a website that I can't navigate and some coaching. And I need a degree in physicism to try to get a coaching license because I need to manage this website that they have. So where is the money going then? Like, then you can't say that there's foul play because we don't have proof and we don't want to get into that. But
Yep.
obviously, as just human nature, you think negatively. So once I saw that they wanted to make the vote, I was like, wow, you go, ladies. This is gonna be fun in terms of must see TV. But so sad that Canada is, now the men's team made the World Cup, and the women's team are walking into this World Cup with such a dark cloud
Hmm.
over their head, and that's unfair. There's some women, like you played with the Canadian national team. Some women have been there before and can shoulder this pressure, and have had the good time. And if it sours their moment a bit, they've already been there, or maybe even but for someone new to the team, this would sour their maybe one or second chance to get to the World Cup. That's sad. Now we're hitting a spot that hurts home, so
Yep.
that.
Especially because this team, like their legacy is they've won a medal at 3 consecutive Olympics, culminating in the gold in Tokyo. So two bronzes and a gold medal. And then they have the leading international goal scorer in Christine Sinclair, who's likely in the twilight of her career. She hasn't confirmed yet if they do qualify. They have those two playoff games against Jamaica in September, and then for them to qualify for Paris 24. She hasn't confirmed whether she's going to play the end of that cycle. But like, and that's contrasted with the legacy of the federation, which is one of covering up abuse and systemic inequity. So like there's something that has to be reconciled
Yeah.
there, because it really doesn't jive going forward.
Oh, it's not. It hasn't been a great year for Canadian sports.
No.
Hockey's had its problems. Soccer now has its problems. Uh, let's hope this gets resolved. Come on, Canada and the federation. Let's wake up and let's do what's right. And I'm pretty sure you could find that money somewhere. So let's find it, and let's squash this and go into the World Cup for Canada. Amy, I said it at the beginning, I said it at the middle, I'm going to say it again. I want to thank you so much for giving us your time in your very, very busy schedule. We're past an hour mark. I can talk to you for sure for another hour. I would love to have you on again. But before I let you go, I do this with all my guests. I have some quick fire questions.
All
You give
right.
me one answer, and then I promise I will let you go.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start. When you were as a player, did you have a role model? Did you have a specific player that you wanted to model your game around?
I love Paul Scholes.
Paul Scholes. Your favorite, club team, whether it be in the EPL, Serie A, whichever league you follow.
Liverpool.
Liverpool. I'm a Milan fan. I can't like Liverpool,
Okay, that's fair.
but I'll give you that one. Uh, Now, as a coach, do you have a coach that you try to? I know they're very young, but someone that you appreciated their tactics and the way they coached,
Uh,
professional or as in your career.
no, I'll just make a joke. I'll say, because I said Liverpool's my favorite team, which it is, I'll say I get the U9s to gegenpress after Klopp.
And I might know this answer, but if there's one team that you dislike the most.
Chelsea.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say or Everton or Manu, but
Oh, no, Everton would have been good, but I just think like when I
ever
first loved Liverpool and started following them. Like it was, oh, I think it was like the Mourinho, we're pre Mourinho days, but like Chelsea was just buying everybody. I'm just like, I hate you guys. So like, I cheered for everybody Chelsea was playing against, basically.
Last question, which is probably the most important one. You can see with my hand gestures, I
Yeah.
am very Italian, Canadian, but very Italian. Amy, you come home from a long day, you're getting ready. The kids, they want pasta.
Okay.
So you're going to make them this pasta. And they like short pasta. And this pasta, the penny. You know penny? What they are?
Penny, yeah.
Penny rigati or penny lisci? With the lines or no lines?
Rigatti,
Yes,
because it holds the
Amy.
sauce.
Yeah, because there's no other penny. The lisci,
Okay.
they don't exist.
Okay.
They exist, but no one really likes them because the sauce slides off and it's not really. But rigati, that's the answer. And you're forever cemented as a guest on this show. You have carte blanche. You can come in anytime.
I love
Amy,
it.
I want to thank you so much, guys. Listening to Amy, fantastic guest on Milan Weekly Podcast, the local soccer show. Thank you again. Have a fantastic season with the Twins. Let's keep them on the same team club. Come on, let's listen to Amy. She knows what she's talking about. Thank you to President in the background. Thank you to Evangelista Sports as always. Guys, ovunque and sempre, Forza Milan, and thank you, Amy. Presidente, take us away.